Welcome back to Underworld Unveiled. Today we're diving into the chilling tale of Samuel Little. With a genius IQ and a charming facade, his life reveals a haunting exploration of childhood trauma and unthinkable violence. Behind his calm exterior lies a darkness that led him to commit horrific crimes against young women. Join us as we unravel the disturbing depths of his psyche, uncover the grisly details of his murders, and examine the legacy of fear he left behind. Prepare for a journey into the mind of a true monster. This is a story you won't want to miss. At 78 years old, Samuel Little, frail and confined to a wheelchair, sits across from a Texas Ranger, speaking in a calm, almost casual manner about the murders he committed over a period of decades. He's surrounded by armed guards, his health failing due to heart disease and diabetes, but his mind remains sharp as he recounts how he took the lives of more than 90 women across 19 states. Despite his frailty, Little speaks with an eerie indifference, almost as though the horrors he committed were simply a part of his life's routine. It's this chilling lack of remorse, along with his cold, matter-of-fact demeanor, that has earned him the label of pure evil by many who have studied his crimes. Between 1970 and 2005, Little traveled across the United States, targeting women who were vulnerable, often living on the fringes of society. These were women who were marginalized, drug addicts, prostitutes, the homeless, and those living in shelters. Little saw them as easy prey, easy to manipulate and control. In many ways, they were the perfect victims for someone like him, whose ability to blend in and avoid detection was unmatched. Little often preyed on women who no one would miss, whose disappearances would not raise alarms, whose deaths might be dismissed as overdoses or accidents. In 1971 in Kendall, Florida, Little described a victim he called Sarah or Donna. He remembered her in extraordinary detail, even sketching her face for investigators. This was no simple confession. Little was remarkably precise in his descriptions of his victims, and the sketches he drew were chillingly accurate. In another case, in 1984, Little spoke of a 25-year-old woman he had encountered outside a strip club in Cincinnati. He recalled her as being small-framed, with short blonde hair and blue eyes, describing her as having a hippie look. This woman, whose fate was sealed the moment she entered his car, would later be found dead, her life claimed by a man who seemed to have no conscience about what he did.
She was pretty, a light-skinned, brown, honey-colored skin. And she was about 5, she was about tall, she was tall for a woman, about 5'8", 5'9", and beautiful shape, and she's friendly.
And how much do you think she weighed?
She had a beautiful body, a beautiful 150, well put together.
And how old do you think she was?
She was about 30.
Okay. And she's a black female.
Yeah.
And tell me where you met her.
I met her in a nightclub in New Orleans. Her and her sister she had two sisters. Her youngest sister was having a birthday party. Her sister was dancing with this guy on the floor. And when I come in, the girl that I was with offered to dance with me. And while we were dancing, she says, you want to go riding after this, after this party's over? We walked outside and she looked and seen my car at Lincoln. She said, ooh, that's a beautiful car too. So she had arm in arm, walking to the car, we got in, stopped at the gas station. We was on the Highway 10 and going toward Slidell. I seen the sign say Little Woods. So I took off the exit, went, and that sure enough was a road leading into the woods. And we went in and parked. So we finally got to where we were going, and it was by a bayou, a river, a little water thing, and the big, they had a machine out there in that little river.
Dredging?
Okay. I grabbed her by the legs and pulled her to the water. That's the only one that I ever killed by drowning.
Describe the location where she's left.
Okay, I left her with her head still there in the water. Half her body in the underwater, and her thighs and legs on the bank.
These confessions, along with the detailed descriptions and well-executed sketches, left investigators stunned. What made these confessions even more unsettling was the fact that Little's recollections were not only vivid, but they were also eerily accurate. He could remember the faces of his victims, the cars he drove, and the locations where he dumped their bodies. At the time of his confessions, law enforcement had no doubt that Samuel Little was not fabricating his story. In fact, it would later be confirmed that Little had indeed committed these crimes. Though not all of his confessions have been verified, enough of them have been that the FBI has officially declared him the most prolific serial killer in United States history. But before we dive deeper into the dark reality of his murders and how he was able to get away with his crimes for so long, it's important to look at the early life of Samuel Little, the child who would grow up to become one of the deadliest killers in American history. Samuel Little was born on June 7, 1940 in Reynolds, Georgia, a small town with a population of just over 1,000 people. It was a place where poverty was widespread, with nearly a quarter of its residents living below the poverty line. Little's childhood was marked by instability and neglect. He was raised by his mother, who worked as a prostitute, and it's believed that Little may have been born in prison after his mother was arrested for her involvement in sex work. At one point, his mother abandoned him, leaving him on the side of the road, a pivotal moment in his troubled youth. After this abandonment, Little was sent to live with his grandmother in Lorain, Ohio. There, he attended Hawthorne Junior High School. His academic performance was poor, and his behavior was even worse. Little dropped out of school, and by the age of 16, he was convicted of breaking and entering and sentenced to time in a juvenile detention center. This marked the beginning of a lifelong pattern of criminal behavior. By the time Little was in his early 20s, his criminal record was already extensive. In 1961, at the age of 21, he was sent to an adult prison after being arrested for breaking into a furniture store in Lorain, Ohio. But even behind bars, his criminal inclinations did not abate. As he moved from state to state, Little racked up numerous arrests for a range of crimes, including assault, theft, fraud, DUIs, armed robbery, and even the sexual assault of women. Law enforcement had no idea at the time that he was already beginning to kill.
Hey, tell me about Northern Kentucky, the girl that you met in Columbus. So you meet this girl, I guess you're at a strip bar downtown Columbus.
I went on my car, and this white girl come out behind the building. And I'm in my trunk. She walked over to me, say, come on, y'all, can you take me to Miami?
Describe this girl to me. She white, black, what she look like?
She was white, blonde hair, dishwater blonde, they go. It's short.
Short, like shoulder length,
Yeah,
or
no, ear length, a little over his ear length.
like a bob?
Yeah, like a bob.
Okay, and how tall do you think she was?
She was about 5'7".
How much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about 130.
How old do you think she was?
Oh, she was about 25.
Okay. You mentioned before that you said she kind of had like this hippie aura to her.
Yeah, she did give you a hippie feeling. I think she was some kind of hippie, yeah.
So you go to Cincinnati, you mess around on Vine Street, and then eventually you guys both get in your car and you cross over the bridge into Kentucky. Tell me about going into Kentucky.
We got to Covington, and then we continued through Covington. Mm-hmm. And there was a park that they were having a festival there. And she heard the music and shit off that band in there. And by her being a hippie type, she wanted to get to that. But the police came over and peeped in our car. We really wanted me to move out of there. So we, instead of going in there, I took her the other way.
Right.
Winding around, they got hills out in Kentucky, and the road winds around the hills. I seen a little short road going up the hill, and up top there was vegetation, wasn't no houses or nothing. And so I pulled up in there and concealed the car in that little vegetation up there on top of the hill.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about this road that goes up the hill. What kind of road is it?
It was like a dirt road.
Okay.
It was like dirt. The grass was growing in the middle between two tracks. When I left her up in that little road up there, on the side of that little road, she was like partially concealed by the vegetation. And I left her there.
Though Little managed to evade detection for many years, his first close call came in 1976. A woman named Pamela K. Smith was attacked by Little in St. Louis. She was able to escape, running to a nearby house and alerting the police. Little was arrested, but because Smith had a history of drug addiction and criminal charges, authorities were reluctant to believe her. She had failed to appear in court for previous offenses, and this may have influenced how seriously the police took her allegations. The case ended with Little serving only 3 months in jail, and he was free to continue his killing spree. Another woman, Patricia Ann Mount, was found dead in Florida in 1982. She was mentally disabled and had an IQ of just 40. Little was seen with her shortly before her death, but he was acquitted in court and the case went cold. Another victim, Melinda Rose Lepre, was found dead in Pascagoula, Mississippi in 1982. The description of the man who had picked her up from the streets matched Little, but there was insufficient evidence to convict him, and he walked free.
North Little Rock. Tell me what that girl looked like.
Oh man, I loved her. I forget her name. Oh wait, I think it was Ruth.
Okay.
She was a heavy set, big old yellow gal, and had buck teeth. It had a gap between the teeth, that's what it was. And she was like honey colored skin, and she had like her hair was not really long. It was.
How tall do you think she was?
She was about 5'7".
How much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about close to 200, about 170, 180.
Pretty big girl.
Yeah.
Now, where did you meet her at?
Okay, down there in the crack house. They heard about 6 other girls were sitting on the porch. The dude selling crack in there. I stopped to go in there. I seen the girls, that's why I stopped. We stayed together 2 days or more. I think it was about 3 days. We was going shoplifting. We went to Sears. We went to Kroger's, and that's where I got busted. Mm-hmm. They took me to jail, and she went and stayed in the car. And the manager of Kroger's, I guess he got tired of her laying on his property in that car. He called the station where I was at in North Arkansas to drop the charges. Mm-hmm. So he can come down and get this gal and car out of here. They cut me loose. So we was headed toward with that place where Walmart's original store been. I whooped off the road and back into that little woods. It was a cornfield back there. I pulled through it, and on the other side of the cornfield was a trash pile. I parked the car facing out where I could see anybody coming in. So I pulled her out of the car. She's too big for me to carry her. So I just pulled her out of the car and laid on that trash that was lit there.
So was it like a cornstalk pile, or was it?
Yeah, a bunch of corn stalks.
What could you see from there?
I could see the highway, mm-hmm. and in the woods is that way. But it's right outside of Little Rock. I was about 10 miles from it.
From North Little Rock, you think 10 miles?
Yeah, it was about 10 miles.
Okay.
In 1984, Little was arrested in San Diego after kidnapping and assaulting a prostitute. He was convicted of false imprisonment and assault with great bodily injury, but once again he managed to avoid a murder conviction. After serving just 2.5 years, Little was released and moved to Los Angeles, where he continued his killing spree, likely murdering at least another 10 women during his time in the city.
Las Vegas. Describe the Las Vegas victim.
That was in '93.
Okay.
I bought a Eldorado.
What color Eldorado?
It was a yellow.
Okay. Yellow Cadillac Eldorado.
Yep.
All right. What year?
78.
Okay. Well, tell me about this girl. What does she look like?
She was kind of thin, dark skinned, about 40 years old. She was out there hustling. I think she was a drug addict because she wouldn't have been out there.
How tall was she?
She was about 5'5", 5'3".
And how much do you think she weighed?
She weighed about 110, 120.
Okay. What about her did you know?
The boy came, that was her son. And she called him over there. And he came over, hey, he shook my hand and everything. Yeah.
Now, how old was he?
He was about 20 or about 19, 20.
Okay, black male or?
Black male.
And where were you at when you met her?
It was on Owens Avenue.
Okay.
Owens, that's down in the black section. Owens and Jackson.
Where do you eventually take her body to?
I was headed toward California.
Mm-hmm.
So as I drove out of Las Vegas, I seen a motel and a road leading up to the motel. And there's a lot of bushes and brushes beside the road before you got to that motel. That's where I pulled up her body out and rolled it down there. And I heard a secondary roll of noise. That meant she was still rolling.
So you basically roll her into a pretty big ditch that's got a bunch of...
Well, it wasn't a ditch, it was a slope.
Okay.
That didn't look like a slope because the vegetation had grown up out of the slope and looked like you would think that the road would just be flat. But actually the road was going down a slope like. And that's why she rolled.
So this is a slope right off the road?
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about how far do you think you were outside of Las Vegas?
The road I was on was going towards Searchlight. So whatever the name of that road is, that's the road I was on.
How far outside of Las Vegas do you think you were? Were you in Las Vegas?
I was still in Las Vegas, yeah.
Okay.
But I was on the very outskirts.
All right.
The very outskirts. There was a couple of motels I remember, gas stations, and it was scattered, because it was getting thin population as you go further out.
Little's luck finally ran out in 2012 when he was arrested at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky. At the time, he was only wanted on a narcotics charge, but an LAPD detective, Mitzi Roberts, began investigating his involvement in unsolved murder cases from California. DNA evidence connected Little to 3 murders, and further investigation revealed that he might have killed women across the entire United States. Over the next few years, he was linked to murders in states from coast to coast. In 2013, he was formally charged with 3 murders in Los Angeles, all women who had been strangled and whose bodies had been discarded in secluded areas. Little was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. However, his story didn't end there. In 2018, at the age of 78, Little began to open up to law enforcement. He confessed to dozens of murders, giving police detailed descriptions of his victims, where he had met them, and how he had killed them. His confessions were often accompanied by sketches of his victims' faces, sketches that were disturbingly accurate. Little's memory was sharp, and his recall of each killing, no matter how distant, was striking in its vividness. Investigators soon realized that many of the murders he confessed to had long been cold cases, but his detailed confessions began to lead to their resolution. To date, Little has confessed to 93 murders, though the FBI has been able to verify 60 of them. Investigations are still ongoing, with authorities reviewing hundreds of unsolved cases that might be linked to him. Little's confessions and the work of dedicated investigators have brought justice to some of the victims he so callously took from the world. However, his indifference to the suffering he caused remains one of the most unsettling aspects of his story. Samuel Little died on December 30, 2020 in California. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed, but his passing marked the end of a career in killing that spanned 5 decades. Little's legacy, however, will remain, not only for the staggering number of victims he took, but also for the way he exposed the systemic failings of law enforcement, especially when it came to solving cases involving vulnerable women. His story is a grim reminder of the dangers of ignoring the marginalized members of society and the cold brutality that some individuals are capable of inflicting. Thanks for joining us on this exploration into the shadows here at Underworld Unveiled. If you enjoyed the content, please give us a like and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with any cases you'd like us to investigate next. Your suggestions help shape our future content. Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes open as we unveil more mysteries from the underworld.